Hello and welcome to Lorna's kitchen. Today we're going to make a really easy, really simple tomato sauce. Use this for lots of things. Use it in pasta dishes and use it in other kind of dishes with chicken or pork or anything like that. So today we're going to make the basic tomato sauce, and then in later videos you'll get to see more things made from this sauce. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel and you'll see what's coming up next. For this dish, I always make sure that I've got good quality tomatoes. These are chopped tomatoes. It can be chopped tomatoes, they can be plum tomatoes, entirely up to yourself. I like the Napolina ones. I think they're very good quality. Always use them. You want some white onions, some garlic, some fresh basil, and some good olive oil. Now, if you don't have good olive oil, you are welcome to use vegetable oil, but because we're using Italian ingredients, I tend to use nice olive oil because that's what Italians like to use. Always for the recipe, I go 1 medium onion for 2 tins. So you can make this as big as you want, you can freeze down the recipe, you can use it for lots of things. I tend to usually make a large batch at once and I freeze it down and I use it throughout my week when I'm cooking if I need to. You'll be fine with it in the freezer for up to a month. Also for each 2 tins, I use 1 clove of garlic. So you got 1 onion, 1 clove of garlic, and then a handful of basil. We'll start by peeling the garlic. Then we'll do the onion as well. This is great because it's so simple and so fast and used for so many dishes. You can make a more complicated tomato sauce where you roast some tomatoes in the oven with some olive oil, some garlic, some oregano and make it really, really full flavoured. But this tomato sauce is extremely simple because we then use it as a base into other dishes, which is why it's so good. But it's also good that you can just use it as a sauce for pasta if you like. So a little fact here, garlic, you always find that after you eat a lot of it, you burp, it comes back and it repeats on you. So if you open up your garlic clove, inside there's what we call the germ. So it's this little bit here. If you remove that from your garlic, it will no longer make you burp, basically. This part here is indigestible, which is why you always feel garlic comes back in you. So if you remove that, you won't have that issue with your garlic anymore. So we're going to cut the garlic as fine as we can. Don't worry too much about it being too fine, because we are going to blend this sauce afterwards, which is why it doesn't matter whether you use plum tomatoes or chopped tomatoes. I used to work in Italy many years ago and we always used plum tomatoes because you could tell that your tomato sauce was ready by the time your plum tomatoes started breaking down. But we're using chopped tomatoes here because it's a faster version and these are midnight week dinners. Chop your onion as fine as you can. That is us ready to start cooking. So what we're going to do now is, we're going to put, I would say 2 tablespoons of this olive oil into the bottom of here. Again, the flavour of this is great in your tomato sauce, so it's okay to be a bit more generous than you would be with normal oils. If you're using a standard vegetable oil, just put in a nice coating on the bottom. You want to put yourself onto a kind of medium heat and get your onions in. Onions and garlic in together, and we're going to do what's called sweating them. So when you're cooking onions, cooking it in different ways give different flavours. So you've got roasting them, sweating them, all these sort of things. What we're doing sweating. So what you should do when you're sweating onions is you put it on a low heat, or a medium heat, sorry. So when you're sweating onions, put it on a medium heat, and then what you want to do is add salt to it. When you add salt to the onions, it starts to draw out the water and it helps them sweat. So if you don't add any salt to it, you'll find that the onions will start to brown, whereas if you add the salt to them when you're cooking them, they'll release lots of water and they'll just begin to sweat rather than brown. And what we want here is sweating. We're sweating them to release lots of nice sugars from them, make them nice and sweet to help with that tomato sauce. So these should take about, I would say, 3 to 5 minutes to sweat, become nice and soft and almost translucent in colour. Then we're going to add our basil. And now the onions are nice and soft, we're going to add in our basil. So rip the stalks from the basil and then just drop them in. Just want to wilt them down in the heat of the onions. You start to smell all the lovely kind of fragrant oils coming out of the basil. We're now going to add in our tomatoes. Now, you can see in the tins there's always a lot of that tomato juice left in there. So I always tend to put some water in one, just a little bit, not much. And then rinse out your cans. Just go into one, into your next one, so you can see it's nice and clean in there. And then add that into there. Now turn up the heat slightly, add a little bit more salt, you add salt at every stage, and I'm also going to add in as well a pinch of sugar. Now I'm going to let that sit and cook on a medium heat for about 30 minutes. The longer you leave this to cook, the better the flavour is going to be. But you can go as little as 30 minutes to, I would say, as long as maybe for 2 tins, 2 hours. We'll let this sit now and cook, and then we'll blend it afterwards and season it up. That's our tomato sauce now been cooking for, I'd say, about an hour. All the tomatoes are broken up. You can start to smell the tomatoes, the sweetness and the richness at the same time. So we know that that's them ready to come off. So what we're going to do now is we're going to blend these. There's lots of different things you can use for blending. You might have a smoothie machine that you can blend it in, a food processor you can blend it in, or you might have a hand blender like myself. And that's what I use to blend it. Again, this is a Kenwood blender. Kenwood's one of my favourite brands for all mixers and blenders. So that's the one that I have. We're going to blend this until it's smooth, and then we're going to taste it, and we're going to decide whether it needs a little bit more salt or possibly a little bit more sugar. So at this point I would then taste it. Okay, so it definitely needs a little bit more salt and a little bit more sugar. Then blend that back into the sauce and taste again. Yep, that's good. That's our tomato sauce done. It's super tasty, nice, sweet, tangy, exactly what you expect from tomatoes. This is our basic tomato sauce recipe. That's us finished. But if you tune in next week, you'll get to see what it is that we're going to make with this as a follow-on. And it's used for lots of different recipes that we're going to make here. So be sure and subscribe, come back and see what we finish this sauce with.